excuse me. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about that Penn State-Boise State game. Got a little bit long there, but going to be an incredible game out there in Phoenix. I am going to pick Penn State to win relatively comfortably in that one, but the reality is, when Ashton Jeanty is on the field, a lot of special things can happen. So we'll see what happens there. Definitely could be an upset over there in Phoenix, but let's get to a little bit of a bowl game roundup. This bowl season has been incredible. I don't know if anyone else is catching on, but this is one of the best bowl seasons that I can remember, and it's definitely making me feel like we might be reviving bowl season just a little bit over the next couple of years. I absolutely love that. It's so much fun to watch these bowls unfold, even if you do have a couple of things that people aren't too happy about, and that's what we'll start with, actually. Cam Ward had a little bit of controversy in this game. I do want to start with Iowa State, though. Iowa State did an incredible job finding their way back into this game. Rocco Beck leads a really incredible touchdown drive to finish this thing off. No Jaden Higgins in this game, so it was a lot of Jalen Noel. Went over 100 yards in this game, was really incredible, and Rocco Beck won the MVP, got his nice little trophy, and got a little Pop-Tart at the very end. Very nice for him, but overall, really incredible game, incredible atmosphere, and I really just hats off to Pop-Tarts for really kind of buying into what this should be. It should be fun, it should be kind of weird, it should be goofy, and then we should have some fun playing football. That's the reality of bowl season at this point. Obviously, the opt-outs and stuff is not ideal. I'm not going to, necessarily say that's the way I want this to go. But the reality is, these type of companies kind of really putting their energy into this, really putting full force behind it, has really created a great atmosphere around them. So I hope more companies like Pop-Tart kind of follow that way of thinking going forward, because this was a very fun spectacle, both from the football perspective and everything happening off the field was plenty fun and really goofy all at the same time. But for Miami, the big topic of conversation is Cam Ward. He played the first half, threw for 3 touchdowns, was playing incredible football, and then sat in the second half. And people had a lot of questions. They said he quit on his teammates. They said this, that, and the other. What do you always say when someone opt out? And it's usually guys that don't have their face on Twitter. But at the end of the day, I don't blame him for making this decision. Frankly, I think it was as much Mario Cristobal's decision as it was Cam Ward's decision, because the reality is they got a quarterback problem there. Emory Williams came into this game, and let's just say they're going to need a portal guy. They're going to need to go get a quarterback. Their quarterback of 2025 is not on the roster right now. They finally got to figure that out against Iowa State this weekend. So that's one part of this. I really don't think this was an entirely Cam Ward decision. I think he was in on the decision. I'm not saying they just entirely boxed him out, but I do think this was a kind of joint decision, and I think it makes a lot of sense for Miami in the future. I think if you're a Miami fan, and maybe Miami fans can tell me I'm wrong here, but if you're a Miami fan, I can't imagine you were too upset about the way that went down. You know what Cam Ward is. He got the record that you were very much hoping he would get, although Dylan Gabriel's breathing down his neck right now. But overall, you got what you needed out of him, and then you get to move forward and you get to see what you have from the young kid. It's not ideal. I would have loved to see Cam Ward out there. I would love to see every single player out there in every single bowl game throughout the year. That's just not the reality. And also, he didn't hurt his draft stock at all. People need to understand that did not impact his draft stock even a little bit. If anything, it probably helped him a little bit with how well he played and how poorly Shedeur played later in the day. So overall, it's a big load of nothing as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I understand the frustration. I would love for him to have been out there. I kind of wanted him to come off the bench and lead that last drive, but overall, he did plenty at Miami. He gave them a ton of success this past year, and I think it's one of those things where people are going to make a big deal out of it. I really don't see it as that big of a deal. I think I got to see Emory Williams, see what he was capable of. Turns out they're probably going to have to go get a transfer portal quarterback. I think it works out for everyone involved. I get the frustration, but overall, just kind of the way of the world right about now. But going back and forth into this game, it was incredible. It was all over the place. It was especially early in this game. In the first half, it looked like we were about to have a 100-100 type game. But at the end of the day, when you look at Miami, when you go forward, the defense needs to be fixed. There will be staff changes. I can almost promise you that. I can't promise how radical they will be or how many people will be out the door, but changes are coming on that side of the ball. There's no doubt. Much like LSU last year, and we've had quite a few comparisons between this year's Miami and last year's LSU. It's coming to a T, especially in the offseason stuff. But an incredible year ahead, I'm sure, in 2025, but quite a bit of work to do, and it starts with that quarterback position. For Iowa State, great finish to an incredible year. Obviously, that Big 12 championship was very, very tough, but ability to bounce back is absolutely huge. Rocco Becht comes back next year, and that kid can go. I'm so excited to see what he can do next year in 2025. The wide receivers will be a little bit of a question with Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins walking out the door, but I love Eli Green. I love Isaiah Alston. I think they have plenty of guys in that room. And then overall, Miami needs a quarterback. I think that's what we learned from this one. I understand being upset at Cam Ward, but at the end of the day, I think the kid made a decision that a lot of us would have made in his position, so not mad at him at all. I think it worked out for just about every party. And then this one, did not expect it. I'll be totally honest with you. I thought Colorado was going to be ready to roll. I thought they were going to make a couple more plays in this one, and it was not the ending Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter wanted to their career. It's been incredible careers. One with a Heisman, one that frankly probably should have been in New York for that Heisman ceremony, but remarkable careers. Really tough days. 2 INTs from Shedeur Sanders. They had 2 rushing yards all day, which is something they're definitely going to have to address in the offseason, but truly dominating from that BYU defense from start to finish. Really incredible. And then on the offensive side of the ball, didn't look all that good. I'll be totally honest. BYU threw three INTs in this game. They lost the turnover battle, which is not something they're used to doing, but they also got 4.3 yards per carry. They got a punt return for a touchdown and just kind of handled business elsewhere. Kalani Sitake did an incredible job coaching in this game. Just a really coaching masterpiece throughout this one. But overall, a tough ending for Colorado, no doubt about that. You'd love to see Shedeur and Travis kind of ride off into the sunset with a win, but 2 remarkable careers. There's no doubt about that. They went to the HBCU level when a lot of people were recruiting him to go to higher levels. They really kind of changed the way that we look at HBCUs in a number of different ways going forward, and then took over Colorado and made it a program that people talk about, which is something that you could not say 2 years ago. Remarkable 2 players, and I have to assume we'll be hearing their names called very early in April when we get to the NFL draft. For BYU, remarkable. It's been incredible to watch what this team has done this year. I've been one guy that has been a little bit hesitant around BYU because some of the turnover margin, because some of the kick returns and stuff that are a little bit fluky in some respects. It made me nervous about this team down the stretch. They did make a couple of mistakes, but frankly, 11-2 season and probably should have been a little bit more in that CFP conversation than they were. At the end of the day, remarkable year for the Cougars, and you got Jake Retzlaff for another year. So let's have some fun. Let's see what they can do in 2025. Could very well be right back in that Big 12 conversation in 2025. USC A&M was an absolutely crazy one. USC started their year in Las Vegas against an SEC team, winning with 8 seconds left with a go-ahead touchdown. They finished their season against an SEC team in Las Vegas, winning with 8 seconds left with a game-winning touchdown. Ridiculous. I don't know how they pulled that off, but at the end of the day, they were down 17 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. USC scores touchdowns on all but one drive, which was an INT by Jaden Maiava. A lot of INTs in this game. They also got a 2 3-and-outs and a missed field goal from A&M. This game was covered in mistakes. We had 5 INTs, I believe 3 from Jaden Maiava, 2 from Marcel Reed, if I'm not mistaken. Both had a missed field goal, 70 penalty yards for both teams. It was not pretty football. Let's just put it that way. It was not pretty football. USC was able to find the final play, and quick shout out to Jacoby Lane and Kyle Ford. Lane, player of the game, 7 catches, 127 yards, 3 scores in this one. A lot of guys walked out the door at USC, especially at that wide receiver position. He has stuck it out, and he had an incredible game in this one. I like to think he will be in LA next year, and it'll be really fun to see what he can do in one more year in that offense. And then Kyle Ford, he's had a injury-riddled career. He's had 2 knee injuries. He's had to transfer. He transferred to UCLA, back to USC. Has had a very weird college career. But his final play in college was a touchdown to win his team that game. Has to be a really cool moment for him, for his family. So quick shout out to him. It's been a long road to get here, but definitely the finish that he very much deserves. And USC gets a little bit of consolation prize. Plenty of work to do in this offseason. It's kind of insane how much work they have to do, but at the end of the day, they'll be a fascinating team to watch. They could very well get 9 wins next year. They could very well bottom out, and Lincoln Riley's looking for a job. So a lot of things could happen around LA, and we'll try to keep you updated as best we can throughout this offseason. And then A&M, you start 7-1, you're leading the SEC, you're 1 win away from the SEC title. You finish 8-5, and now you're looking around. You have upgraded in the portal. You've done a great job there. I have questions around Marcel Reed going into next year. It'll be very, very interesting to see what what happens in that respect. But overall, I think it's one of those games where just A&M season. It feels like everything went wrong for them down the stretch of this game, like it did in the back stretch of this season. And then we had this one. This one was a little bit more aggressive than the scoreline shows here. Vanderbilt pretty much controlled this game from the jump in. It was Diego Pavia. He was absolutely incredible in this one. Had nearly 250 total yards, 5 touchdowns, was the Vandy Bull record. Remarkable player, one of those guys that we know has been incredible all year, but had to show off just one more time in 2024. He will be back for 2025 to show off plenty of more times. But Georgia Tech is starting to mount a comeback started to mount a comeback after the lightning delay, but got 2 late touchdowns within 8 minutes left, and got within 8. Missed an onside kick with about 1:30 left, and that was about all she wrote. So wasn't necessarily all that nail-biter of a game, but Georgia Tech made it interesting late in that game. They're one of those teams that is not going to stop fighting until they see triple zeros on that clock. But great year from both these teams. Really remarkable to see what both these coaches, what both these staffs, what both these quarterbacks have been able to do throughout this year. So the momentum could really not be higher around both these places. Going into next year, you have your quarterback back. They're both 7-6 this year. They could very easily be 9-win teams and be firmly in the CFP conversation next year. Definitely going to need to do some work in the offseason, fill in some gaps, particularly Vanderbilt on that defensive side of the ball, but definitely 2 teams that I think would be really, really fun to watch in the ACC and the SEC respectively. And then this one. I don't know. I don't know what to make of Oklahoma right now. I'll be totally honest with you. The first 2 drives, Oklahoma rolled down the field. They were up 14-0. They were dominating. After those 2 drives, the rest of the game, they had 2 turnovers on downs, they had 3 punts, they had an end-of-half drive, they had a fumble, they had a missed field goal before the final drive that gave them a chance to win the game. This offense is just inept, and obviously they're getting Ben Arbuckle in there, obviously they're getting John Mateer in there at quarterback. They're not fixing all the problems with this offense, and we can get to that throughout the offseason. We can break down Oklahoma and get into that in more detail, but they got some soul searching to do. There are a lot of great things to think about in 2025, but you just lost Zach Alley, so you now have to replace your quarterback, both coordinators, for the 2nd year in a row. That is an incredibly tough thing to do, and the reality is you're in the SEC where everyone feels like they're scaling. LSU feels like they're scaling. Texas is scaling. Georgia is going to be Georgia. Bama is going to find their footing next year. You are in a really, really tough spot if you're Oklahoma. If you do not hit on just about everything you do in the portal from here forward, you're in a really tough spot in 2025. They'll be a fascinating team to watch because I think the talent is there. I think Brent Venables is a plenty good head coach to turn that corner, but they got some problems personnel-wise, and they have to figure that out very, very quickly, or it's going to get very ugly around there in Norman for quite some time. But to Navy, to the winners of this game, because it was really incredible to watch this team this year. Blake Horvath was absolutely incredible. He is only a junior, so he will be back for next year. 10 wins, Commanders-in-Chief trophy, bull win over Oklahoma. It doesn't get much better than that if you're a Navy team. So remarkable stuff from them. Really, really enjoyed them this year and cannot wait to see what Blake Horvath can do his senior year. What's going on, Anthony? Nice to see you. And then wanted to give some love to Nebraska here. They are over 500 for the very first time since 2016. It's been a long road, and it's been a very, very tough one. A really gutsy performance from Ramir Johnson in his hometown. Really incredible moment for him. But overall, this was a building block. It was not the year that Nebraska wanted by any means, but you have Dylan Raiola coming back, Dane Key coming in from the portal. The supporting cast should get better and better. I think the defense will be more than fine next year, even with a lot of guys walking out the door. 2025 is it for Matt Rule. If he does not deliver, if they don't get to, I'll say 9 wins, I can't necessarily promise that's what Nebraska fans think, but overall, I do think 9 wins would probably do the trick. For Boston College, it's a good start to the Bill O'Brien era. Obviously, there are going to be talent gaps. That's just the reality of being the head coach at Boston College. I think he did a really good job throughout this year with this team, and I think he'll be a very good head coach going forward for Boston College. But overall, those are the big ones that stood out to me. Those are the games that really, really kind of jumped off the page to me, especially that game against Iowa State Miami. Not so much for what happened on the field, although that was incredible, but everything that happened on Twitter afterwards, trying to tear Cam Ward down. I'm not necessarily a part of that group. I understand the frustration. I would have loved to see Cam Ward out there, very much so. But at the end of the day, it's the way the world works now. So I'm not necessarily going to fight it too much. It'll be interesting to watch what he does the rest of the way. But let's take our second break here, and when we come back, we will talk about all of the other bowl games. We'll talk about the ones that have already happened, some of the under-the-radar ones, and then we'll get you prepared for all the ones coming up this week. So stick with us, and we'll be right back with that.